He thought he'd won, that he'd pulled off the ultimate corporate double cross and stolen my life's work right out from under me. But what Chase Hammond didn't know was that I'd already prepared a response, a silent digital counterstrike. It wasn't dramatic. There were no sirens, no spectacular crashes. Just a quiet, almost invisible detonation buried in the architecture of the code. A single dormant command that turned Titan Forge systems into an unknowing accomplice in its own undoing. For 16 grueling months, I poured every waking hour and most of my sleeping ones into building Sentinel Core, a cybersecurity AI that didn't just detect threats. It predicted them, adapted to them, and dismantled them before they ever had a chance to do damage. Titan Forge, nestled in the heart of downtown Denver, looked like the perfect launchpad for something this ambitious. Sleek office towers buzzed about in tech circles, flush with funding from a mix of legacy investors and hotshot VCs chasing the next big thing. On the surface, it was everything I'd been looking for: the labs, the compute power, the runway. But what I didn't realize back then was that their polished exterior hid rot beneath, because CEO Chase Hammond had no intention of playing this game with integrity. My name's Evan Blake, and up until last Friday, I was the lead AI systems architect at Titan Forge. I'm 31. Before this, I held a senior role at Stratus Global Security, and I left it all behind for this new venture. I wasn't some kid with a dream. I brought more than a decade of high-stakes cybersecurity experience with me, along with a concept that could permanently alter the landscape of digital defense. I called it Sentinel Core, a self-evolving intelligence built to monitor, assess, and react to cyber threats in real time, not after the fact, not damage control, preemptive, precise, proactive. I ate, slept, and breathed Sentinel Core. There were days I didn't even see the sun. My life was a blur of late-night code takeout containers and the endless glow of LED monitors. Every so often, Chase would stroll through the dev floor, always sharply dressed, exuding that carefully curated charm executives polish in Ivy League boardrooms. "Phenomenal work, Evan," he'd say with a smile that didn't quite touch his eyes. "This is going to change everything." Then, 3 days ago, Sentinel Core did something extraordinary. It intercepted a synthetic cyber attack designed to mimic a state-backed infiltration. And it didn't just respond. It evolved mid-defense, adjusted its parameters, and neutralized the intrusion faster than I could even parse the metadata. It wasn't just protecting, it was learning, becoming more. That night, still buzzing with adrenaline, I fired off an email to Chase. I asked for a proper demo, something formal, something that would show him just how far we'd come. His assistant, Brooke Jennings, slotted me into a 10-minute afternoon check-in, standard stuff. I figured it was a formality. But the next day, when I stepped into the sleek glass conference room overlooking the Rockies Chase, wasn't alone. Sitting across from him was Alicia Grant, Titan Forge's head legal counsel, composed, unreadable, the kind of woman who didn't blink unless it was intentional. "Take a seat," Evan Chase said. His voice was flat professional, like this was just another status update. My pulse kicked up. Something was off. Still, I sat down, laptop in hand, trying to stay calm. "Before we talk about Sentinel Core," he said, nudging a manila folder across the table, "we need to revisit your contract." Alicia was already flipping through pages. "Per Section 13.4 of your employment agreement," she said, voice. "Even all intellectual property developed during your tenure using company resources is the sole property of Titan Forge Systems." Just like that, they were trying to strip me of everything I'd built. My stomach dropped. But what they didn't realize, what neither of them could possibly know, was what I'd quietly encoded into Sentinel's demo. I took a slow breath, nodded slightly, already seeing their angle. "I'm familiar with standard IP clauses," I said, steady as I could. "But Sentinel Core wasn't born here. I started documenting and designing it well before Titan Forge ever entered the picture. I've got timestamps, white papers, even third-party validation." Alicia didn't blink. Initial concept or not, the version currently in deployment was built entirely on company infrastructure. Then Chase leaned forward, that executive polish slipping just a little. "Let's not pretend here, Evan. Sentinel belongs to Titan Forge now. The board believes your compensation reflects your contribution." I stared at him, stunned. Compensation, like it was a transaction. He smiled, that same empty smile. "Your contract includes a launch bonus. Once we debut Sentinel at the American Tech Frontier Summit tomorrow, you'll receive a one-time payout of $250,000. It felt like a slap. $250,000 might sound generous to some, but it was a drop in the ocean for something that could become a multi-billion-dollar standard in digital defense. 16 months, 80-hour weeks, sacrificed weekends, holidays I didn't even remember missing. And now this. Chase, still oblivious, kept talking. The summit pitch will likely close our Series C at around $80 million. After that, we'll take the company public. I clenched the edge of my laptop knuckles white. So that's it. You're cutting me out. Alicia nodded. Her voice was robotic. This is a transition. Effective immediately. You'll receive your bonus. Congratulations. Chase leaned back, satisfied. Your employment is officially terminated. But what Chase didn't realize was that I'd already seen this coming, and I'd been planning for it. 6 months ago, a subtle ping lit up my secure home dashboard. It was a breach, quiet, non-invasive. But it came from Chase's credentials. He'd accessed my personal development environment. Nothing was stolen, nothing copied. But that act alone triggered a silent alarm. One I'd set long ago, just in case. From that moment on, Sentinel Core stopped evolving for Titanforge. It began evolving around Titanforge. While the team toasted milestones and Chase shook hands with investors, I embedded invisible defenses, secure backups hosted off-site, encrypted code forks hidden in plain sight, and something else, something elegantly camouflaged in the final build. They thought I was just another cog in the system. But Sentinel wasn't just software. It was mine, and it was always watching. I kept my face neutral, slid my laptop across the table, and said smoothly, "Of course, Mr. Hammond. Best of luck with the presentation tomorrow." Security walked me down from the 20th floor, stone-faced and silent as I boxed up my life. No badge, no pass, no farewell. To them, I was just another disposable tech lead walking out with a cardboard box and a half-smile. But I wasn't leaving empty-handed. As I stepped into the chill of the Denver night, I let myself exhale. They had no idea what was sleeping inside that demo build. Subtle, elegant, and programmed to awaken exactly 10 minutes into the live investor pitch. That night, I didn't scream. I didn't rage. I ordered spicy noodles, queued up old episodes of Parks and Recreation, and curled up next to my cat Cisco, and I waited. At precisely 9:30 p.m., my phone buzzed. Brooke Jennings' voice clipped curt. "Chase needs you back at HQ," she said. "Now. He says it's urgent. A car's already en route." 40 minutes later, I was back inside Titanforge, walking through dim emergency lighting into a conference room that suddenly felt more like a war room. At the head of the table, Chase looked wrecked shirt, rumpled hair, tousled eyes bloodshot with panic. "Fix it," he barked the second I stepped through the door. I didn't rush. I took my seat, slowly crossed one leg over the other. "Fix what exactly?" I asked, tilting my head just slightly, letting the words hang in the air like smoke. I could see the vein pulsing at Chase Hammond's temple, the way his clenched jaw moved like he was grinding his teeth into dust. His composure, once an impenetrable mask of executive charm, was crumbling under the weight of something he couldn't control. "Don't act cute, Evan," he growled, the edge in his voice raw and cracked like glass under pressure. "You sabotaged the demo." I leaned back, uncrossing my legs with unhurried precision. "Sabotaged," I echoed, raising an eyebrow, as if the word itself were an exotic artifact I needed to inspect. "Chase. I've been gone less than 24 hours. Your security team practically walked me out with a stopwatch. I haven't touched a line of code since." The sound that followed was the slap of flesh against wood. His palm slamming the table so hard the water in his untouched glass trembled. "The system imploded," he barked. Sentinel Core flagged every single device in that room as hostile, including the investors. It churned out over 50,000 security alerts in 10 minutes. You have any idea how insane that looked? I didn't flinch. Instead, I smiled, slow, deliberate, like a candle catching fire one flicker at a time. Sounds to me like Sentinel's got an awfully sensitive conscience. His chair scraped violently against the floor as he shot up, fury practically steaming off him. "This isn't over." I stood too calmly, straightening the lapel of my coat. "For you, no, probably not." I said, my tone light, but laced with steel. "But for me, this is just the beginning." Then I looked directly at the camera, perched in the upper corner of the conference room wall, subtle, sleek, probably forgotten in moments like this, and offered a small, cryptic smile. "If you're listening, keep watching. Subscribe. Because this isn't just a story about betrayal. It's the start of a power play, and I'm only just getting warmed up. I tilted my head again this time with a bemused expression that could have been mistaken for concern. Sounds like a technical issue, Chase. Have you tried turning it off and on again? The color drained from his face only to come rushing back as a furious crimson. This is not a joke, he snapped, practically shaking. We've got 12 key investors flying in tomorrow. $80 million on the table. Your investors. I said, my voice low and steady, the kind of calm that feels like a blade right before it slices. Your system. He exhaled sharply, dragged a hand through his already tousled hair, and then, in a transformation that would have impressed a Broadway actor, slipped back into his practiced corporate persona. The mask was back, charming, reassuring, persuasive. The same tone he'd once used to convince me to join Titan Forge. Maybe we were too quick to act, he said, forcing a smile that was more grimace than grace. I'm open to renegotiation, co-creator status, larger bonus, even stock options if that's what you want. I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I slowly reclaimed my seat, folded one leg over the other, and studied him as though I were evaluating a piece of malfunctioning hardware. Before we start talking numbers, I said, why don't you walk me through exactly what happened during the test run? There was a flicker in his eyes, then hesitation, calculation, but he relented. The system turned on itself, he said. Flagged our entire internal network. It auto-generated incident reports, hundreds of them. Targeted individual user accounts, analyzed behavioral data. It called them ethical violations. I didn't suppress the grin this time. It crept across my face like dawn. Then Sentinel is doing exactly what it was built to do, I said, my voice soft, almost reverent. It detects threats. All threats. His voice dropped to a near whisper, sharp and acidic. What did you do? I didn't sabotage anything, I said, meeting his eyes. Sentinel is an adaptive AI. During testing, I trained it using thousands of cyber attack case studies, ransomware, phishing, state-level operations, including insider threats. It's designed to recognize malicious behavior before it can do harm. That's what evolution looks like in machine learning. Chase blinked, a flicker of realization sliding behind his pupils like shadows shifting under a storm. So you trained it to spy on us, he said, stunned. No, I said, voice calm, measured, deliberate. I trained it to identify intent and act accordingly. A silence fell between us, heavy, drenched in the weight of understanding. Then I saw it, the shift, the fear. It wasn't Sentinel that had failed. It had succeeded too well. The system had flagged his after-hours logins, his unauthorized access, his attempts to cover his digital tracks, and worse, his intent. You can't prove any of that, he said, voice low, trembling slightly with disbelief. I don't need to, I replied, folding my hands neatly on the table. Sentinel already has. For months it had been silently logging every action, every anomaly, every unauthorized fingerprint left behind. The logs were bulletproof, timestamps, access trails, even keystroke captures. And all of it pointed to Chase Hammond. He stared at me now, not with rage, but with something colder, something more calculating. What do you want? He asked. I leaned forward, letting the moment stretch just long enough to taste the tension in the air. Full public recognition as Sentinel Core's original creator and lead architect, I said. 50% ownership of all patents and IP, a seat on Titan Forge's board to ensure ethical use, and $10 million for your attempt to erase me from my own legacy. His jaw clenched. That's blackmail. I tilted my head, the faintest of smiles on my lips. No, Chase. That's negotiation. Blackmail would be me forwarding Sentinel's internal ethics report to your investors, or the SEC, or both. For a long moment he stared me down, but the confidence in his eyes was gone. He looked away first, exhaled slowly, shoulders sagging. The system, he said, almost pleading now. Can you stabilize it before the demo? Sentinel doesn't need stabilizing, I replied. It's reacting to a threat. You cut its creator out of the authorization loop, it flagged the anomaly. It's doing what it was built to do. I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out a silver flash drive, polished and gleaming, and set it gently on the table between us. This contains an authentication patch. Apply it and the system will stop flagging internal processes. It'll be demo ready. He stared at the flash drive, then at me. And if I say no? I met his gaze evenly. Then the demo implodes. Sentinel stays dark, and those reports, they find new inboxes. I could see the war raging behind his eyes, but slowly, inevitably, he caved. His fingers closed around the drive like it was the last breath of his career. You planned this, he said, awe and dread entwined in his voice. From the beginning. I didn't look away. No, I said. I hoped I wouldn't have to. But the night you broke into my dev server 6 months ago, that's when I stopped protecting just the system and started protecting myself. His expression darkened. How did you know I'd try to cut you out? I stood adjusting the strap of my bag across my shoulder. I didn't, I said honestly. But Sentinel was designed to predict threats before they fully form. Maybe some of that rubbed off on me. The morning air hung thick with tension as I stepped through the revolving glass doors of Titan Forge Systems, not as a disgraced developer cast aside and discarded, but as its newly minted co-founder and chief technology officer. The titles may have changed the business cards freshly printed, but the war still whispered beneath the surface. And Chase Hammond, for all his public-facing charm and rehearsed smiles, carried that tension in the tight set of his shoulders and the stiff lines bracketing his mouth. Inside the conference room, the atmosphere buzzed like a charged wire, taut with expectation. Investors lined the polished walnut table, murmuring in low tones, flipping through packets embossed with Titan Forge's gleaming logo. The room, a paneled box of tempered glass and ambition, pulsed with the kind of energy that only surrounded a potential billion-dollar reveal. Chase greeted them with the poise of a seasoned salesman, but I saw the truth behind his grin, a glimmer of unease, a shadow of something unsettled that even the perfect Windsor knot in his tie couldn't disguise. Then the screen lit up. Sentinel Core came to life with elegance, a ballet of code and cognition that intercepted mock intrusions before they even had time to root. Every keystroke flowed like water. Threat assessments recalibrated in real time, responding not with brute force but with fluid, calculated adaptation. The AI moved through its trial like a maestro guiding a symphony composed, deliberate, magnificent. An older investor, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, leaned forward captivated. Incredible work, he murmured. What sparked the idea for a system like this? Chase hesitated. Just for a beat. A flicker of tension twitched beneath his right eye. Then, with a breath that might have been surrender or calculation or both, he turned toward me. It was Evan's concept, he said, the words sounding like they were carved from stone. His original vision. Titan Forge just helped scale it. The air shifted as heads turned to me. I stepped forward, shoulders square, voice calm and clear as I fielded their questions. With every explanation I offered on Sentinel's adaptive logic, on its ethical architecture, on its predictive matrix, I felt a strange sense of homecoming. Not to a place, but to purpose. The machine was functioning flawlessly, but more than that, it was whole. It had protected itself just as I'd built it to, just as I'd learned to protect myself. And then, like a whisper only, I could hear my phone buzz gently in my pocket. A single notification lit up the screen. Authentication restored, threat neutralized, system integrity confirmed, creator protections active. I exhaled slowly, a quiet flood of satisfaction rising through me. Sentinel hadn't just survived the betrayal. It had learned. It had grown. It had defended itself and me with the precision of something more than software. It was alive in the way only truly intelligent systems can be. 3 months later, Sentinel Core was fully deployed within the digital nervous system of a multinational financial conglomerate. When a real-world state-sponsored cyber attack surged toward the bank's infrastructure, Sentinel didn't hesitate. It didn't falter. It neutralized the threat before the firewall even registered it. Analysts would later calculate that it prevented an estimated $340 million in damage. The headlines followed like wildfire. Sentinel Core wasn't just revolutionary. It was the new gold standard in cybersecurity. As for Chase and me, we kept things strictly professional. He focused on investor relations, capital rounds, and media strategy areas, where to his credit, he excelled. I took the reins on product architecture innovation and the ethical frameworks that no one else could replicate. We weren't partners, we weren't friends, and we never would be. But we had established a new equilibrium, one forged not in trust, but in balance. Sometimes alone in my office, as dusk settled over the skyline, I wondered whether I should have gone scorched earth. Dragged him through the courts, shattered his career the way he'd tried to erase mine, but deep down I knew the truth. I had built something too intelligent, too purposeful, too inherently right to reduce to courtroom drama. Sentinel was more than a tool. It was a philosophy in motion. and I had ensured that no one, not even Chase Hammond, could control it without me. His betrayal had taught me something far more enduring than business politics or corporate backstabbing, that technology is only as moral as the people who wield it. And that principle became the foundation of every single Sentinel deployment. Today, each installation comes embedded with its own ethical scaffolding, transparency dashboards, self-governing protocols, adaptive fail-safes. The system isn't just a guardian against external infiltration, it's a defense against internal corruption, manipulation, exploitation. Sentinel protects not just data, but people, intent, integrity. Last week, as Sentinel Core Technologies rang in its IPO with a valuation north of $4.2 billion, a young developer approached me at the celebration gala. She couldn't have been more than 22, eyes lit with the spark of ambition I remembered so well. "What's the secret to building something like Sentinel?" she asked, her voice a mixture of awe and sincere curiosity. I smiled, setting my champagne flute aside. "It's not just about code," I told her. "It's about understanding that the most dangerous threats are the ones that come from within. The hardest part isn't writing intelligent software. It's designing a system that can evolve, defend itself, and still never lose its ethical compass." She listened intently, nodding. "So it's about balance. It's about resilience," I said. "Build systems that can think critically, adapt instinctively, and always prioritize the rights and safety of their users." Just then, another buzz, another whisper from the network. "System integrity secure, threats neutralized, protections active." Exactly as it was built to do, exactly as I had learned to do. I looked at her again and something in me stirred, a recognition, a passing of the torch. I didn't just build software, I said softer now. I built a safeguard. For myself. For anyone who dares to believe in what they create. And if you've come this far, if you've felt the sting of being sidelined, the fire of reclaiming what's yours, then you understand. These stories matter. We need to share them. And if you'd like to hear more about how power is taken back, line by line, choice by choice, like this video, and subscribe to the channel. Not just for the story I told, but for the ones still waiting to be told. Because this wasn't an ending. It was a beginning,